Welcome everyone to our webinar From Paper to Platform, how iPublish and SIGNiX are modernizing public notices. We are excited for our discussion and presentation today, and we're very thankful for your time. We're going to talk about saving time, saving money, and how our partnership is transforming the way public notices are done. Just a quick heads up, at the end of the webinar, we will allow for time to ask questions with our experts and answer any questions you have. You can also put your questions in the chat box at any time, and we will be sure to get to them. Looking at our agenda for today, we'll do a little bit of intro to both SIGNiX and iPublish, and as well as who our speakers are. What's broken in the traditional public notice process? What is the opportunity and the solution to that, as well as a full-on visual walkthrough of today's affidavit workflow, the new and improved workflow. We'll also talk about the impact, the turnaround times, cost, and compliance benefits to the new workflow, as well as I mentioned, we'll also do that audience Q&A. My name is Sam West. I'm the Senior Account Executive here at SIGNiX. Joined with me from the iPublish Media Solutions team is Andrew Zaman, the CEO of iPublish, as well as James Allen, Senior Sales Engineer. Introducing SIGNiX, for those of you who are not aware from us, that's okay. We've been doing this for about 25 years with our digital signature product, which is fundamentally different than a basic e-sign, which we'll talk about throughout the webinar. We were also the first remote online notarization, an e-notary platform, going back to when Virginia was the first state to do this back in 2013. So we've been doing this for quite some time. We pride ourselves on the compliance standard when it comes to e-sign and e-notary, but we also are pioneers for digital transformation, and we are the software platform that powers this partnership. I'll go ahead and turn it over to my other panelist here today, which is Andrew, to tell us about iPublish.
Thanks, Sam. So iPublish has been a vendor in the newspaper publishing space for 20 years. It's actually 20 years this week. We started the company in 2006. We had three founders, myself, Jim Sporell, and Brian Gorman. And at that time in 2006, we each had over 20 years of experience in publishing. So it's safe to say that we are true veterans in newspaper publishing. iPublish is truly considered a leader in the self-service advertising space. We have built a modern, easy-to-use platform focusing primarily on obituaries, classified, and vertical that we're going to talk about today, public notices. We're also focusing on working with publishers on the digital transformation taking place. And that is what a lot of today's webinar is about.
Fantastic, Andrew. So let's get into it and shifting gears to our Q&A portion of the webinar. And let's really dive in deep here and identify the problem with traditional notarization and that's really the first question I have for you is, what does today's public notice process look like? And are there any problems or challenges that newspapers are facing?
So today, public notices are a major source of revenue for newspapers, and there are a lot of rules. Every jurisdiction has its own unique set of guidelines, and there's not a lot of wiggle room in the production process for how the newspapers do it. This makes standardizing workflow difficult. Public notices is also a very labor-intensive process. It makes it time-consuming and it's expensive. And a lot of the workflows that exist today haven't been changed or updated in many years. So the way the workflow works today is a notice is created. It's either done with some self-service application, ours, or maybe a homegrown one, or maybe one of our competitors. Once the notice is created, it runs through its insertion process. And then when those insertions are complete, an affidavit is created. Proof of print is gathered and verified, and then that affidavit can be signed, and then very often it's notarized. The affidavit is then delivered either through a manual mailing process or a manual scan back into the system, and it's delivered by email. The finished affidavits are then filed away somewhere. Either the scans are filed away on some computer, or the hard copies are filed away in some file cabinet for some predetermined period, after which time they can be disposed of. So again, this is a very expensive process. There are a lot of steps. There's a lot of manual labor, stamps, paper, scanning, filing, notary costs, and we've recognized that this is definitely an issue.
Yeah, that definitely does sound like a lot of steps. How long does that typically take? And I know this does vary per newspaper, but from start to finish, what's the whole process look like?
So it really depends on the volume, right? So smaller publications may have 3 or 4 affidavits a day, and each one of those may take a few minutes, and it's a chore that has to be done. Some may have 20 a day, and that 3 to 4 minute chore or 5 minutes all of a sudden becomes an hour. But some publications or some newspaper groups have 1, 2, 3, 400 a day, maybe 500 a day. Now you start multiplying that by a few minutes, and you're looking at significant time and cost, and some have even up to 1,000 a day. So there is an opportunity, even if you can shave the smallest amount of time off each affidavit in the process, you can, as those numbers or as those volumes build, you're looking at significant time savings. We're not looking at taking a minute off. We're looking at taking significant time and effort out of the whole process, so that overall, any publisher that uses this process will see a real benefit.
Definitely. And one of the other challenges that we've really identified that I was hoping I could get your input on was scalability. You think about the traditional notarization process where, as I take on more volume, the only thing that really works is if I hire more people. So is that a challenge that your customers are facing? And we'll get into what we're kind of doing about that, but just wondered like, how does that relate to this process today?
So in this day and age, newspapers have their fixed costs. They have fixed costs in printing, they have fixed costs in people, and any opportunity that we can help them through workflow, through an automated workflow to reduce those fixed costs, that's a win. And if we can take a workflow that used 4 or 5 or 6 people and bring that down to 1 or 2 or 3 people, or we, as iPublish, would take on the workflow for them and handle all of that in-house, that's an opportunity that that newspaper has to save significant cost.
Definitely. Sounds like we've identified the problem. The traditional public notice process is manual, touches a lot of hands, is costly, requires printing, scanning, and mailing, and is also prone to errors and omission. So there's got to be a better way. And now that we've defined the old way, what did you do about it?
So iPublish always had the ability to allow newspapers to do a self-service public notice uh, to create that process. But we didn't have the whole process from start to finish automated. So we thought, what if we could simplify and automate the entire process from start to finish? Standardize the workflow, digitize the workflow, and significantly reduce the time that it takes to process the notice, verify the notices, process the affidavits, deliver the affidavits, and then store the affidavits. If we could have a process in place that automated that from start to finish, we thought that would be a big win for everybody. It would reduce costs, it would reduce people, it would be much less labor intensive. And actually, from the customers of the newspaper's point of view, they would be delivered what they needed more quickly and more efficiently.
Fantastic.
We would make this workflow completely available to the publishers, or as I said before, we could offer this as a full service to our newspaper customers.
and along came our partnership. And I'm just curious as to, as you were evaluating this new way, kind of walk us through that process. And really, as a salesperson, I'm kind of interested in why SIGNiX. Like, had you heard of this automation before? Was anyone doing it? Couple of questions there, but just would love your feedback.
So we knew that we had competitors and we had some newspapers internally that were offering this as a service, or there were companies that were offering it as a service. But when we dug into it, we realized that they were doing the same old process manually, just offering it as a service. There was nothing innovative about it. The problem we had was the concept of notaries in different states, newspaper customers living in different states than the newspaper published from. We didn't know what all the rules and regulations, nor were we in a position to become experts in that space for 50 different states. And we had worked with some customers who had a great experience with SIGNiX. SIGNiX came highly recommended to us. So we made that contact. We learned about your business. We learned about your expertise. We found out that SIGNiX had an API that was very easy to work with. And we set the wheels in motion to put this process together. And we did. We're happy we did. And we have what we think is a wonderful product.
Fantastic. And two more questions here, and then we'll kind of get into how this all really works. We can see it in action. And I think you talked about this a little bit, but what were some of the concerns before going live?
The biggest concern was adoption. We needed to be sure that this really was the right solution and that it worked in all 50 states. We needed to know that we weren't covering 60% or 80% or even 99% of the country. We needed 100% coverage. We couldn't offer this product and said it will do most of your work. We needed it to do all of the job. And it was very comforting to find out that SIGNiX had a solution that allowed us to do that. That was probably the biggest and most important roadblock that we got past.
Absolutely. And let me explain a little bit more. So with our solution and SIGNiX, we have to go through a very rigorous approval process in all of the states that allow for remote notarization. But the good thing is that as long as iPublish notaries are certified to do remote notarization in their state, the newspaper can be located anywhere. So it really allowed us to focus on that, centralize everything together, and you could service the needs of all of your customers, regardless of their location, even if those states, didn't allow for their needs to do this. So yeah, we definitely understood that was a concern, and helped be able to create a network of notarizations where you could rely on iPublish for that as well. So the last question I have for you is, during this opportunity stage is, were there any other opportunities you didn't think about, either for newspapers yourself or both?
Well, one of the as I mentioned, one of the options that we're now offering and that this opportunity brought us was the opportunity to become the legal desk for newspapers. We originally thought this would just be added to our workflow in the offering that is our ad portal product. And we had customers come to us, newspaper customers, and say, would you be willing to take the whole process on internally for us so that we can jettison that staff and not worry about it? And that wasn't something that we were thinking of 6 to 8 months ago. This opportunity with SIGNiX and our ability to complete the whole process from start to finish allowed us to offer what we call a fully managed service.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, I've appreciated talking to you about, the problem with traditional notarization and then the opportunity of our partnership. Can we actually see the process? And for this part, I'm going to turn it over to James Allen with iPublish for a full-on walkthrough of how this new and improved process works. James.
Thanks, Sam. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
For those not familiar with iPublish Ad Portal, it is the user interface where all the magic happens. The intake module guides the user through creating, purchasing, and submitting a public notice to the newspaper for publishing. As pointed out earlier, each state and local municipality has strict publishing guidelines for things like how to rate the ad based on its classifications, how many times does the ad have to publish, do they have to be consecutive dates, and so on. Ad Portal Public Notices manages all of these requirements and enforces all of the business rules, the publisher's business rules. For affidavit processing, there are 3 basic functions that are performed in Ad Portal: review of the affidavits and e-tear sheets, submit the reviewed orders for notarization, and to schedule the notarization between the signer and the notary. I'm logging in as an admin so that I can perform my role as a reviewer. So when I log in my dashboard, I see the review affidavits. Ad Portal also tracks which orders have met their all their insertion requirements and lists them in descending order based on their last run date. So a reviewer comes in, they have everything they need right in front of them. This first notice that I'm going to review is a online only ad. So I'm going to click on this view in the marketplace link. It's going to show me that the ad is there and that it did appear on the Wichita Eagles site. So I can go back to my list and I can check the box saying that I've viewed that one. Now I'll take care of a print one. So here I'll view the print tear sheet. Before I view the tear sheet, I'm going to copy the order number so that I can make sure that the ad appeared all 4 times in the tear sheet. And I have tear sheets for all of them. So I'll do a search for the order number, and then we'll just go right through the list here. And there's one, there's the 3rd one, and then there's the, or wait, there's the 4th one. Let's get there. Right. So that one has published all 4 times. And then I'll also review the online ad to make sure it appeared online, and it did appear online as well. So I'll check that box. And now I'll move on and continue to submit those for further review and submission. The next step is to submit the affidavits for notarization. So I'll come in here and I'll hit the submit button. And here I don't have to do anything except the select the orders that I want to submit for notarization and click continue. And then I'm going to schedule the meeting for the signer and the notary. So in this case, the signer on duty today is Sherry Shastine. So I'm going to select her as the signer. Shannon is the notary. I'll set the appointment for today. And then I'll submit the obits. Now, the affidavit. So at this point, the application, so SIGNiX application has emailed the signer and the notary, and they are now joining a recorded Zoom call to perform their roles as signer and notary. So Shannon and Sherry are joining the webinar. Sherry is the signer, so she will be looking at her email here. And now that they both joined, she's gotten a link to the SIGNiX dashboard that she'll click. This link will have the transactions that she will be responsible for signing. And as soon as she logs in, it'll tell her how many she's got. So she's got 4 to sign. and she's going to click on the sign field there, and it's going to affix her signature dynamically. That's all she has to do. She just clicks in the field, and it puts her signature in there. As soon as she hits close, it then fires off an email to the notary. In this case, it's Shannon, saying, Shannon, it's time to notarize these documents. Shannon then logs into the SIGNiX platform, and she performs her role as the notary. The notary will have one additional requirement. She'll have to fill out some additional information about the Notarial Act, like the venue, what kind of act it is. In this case, it's a remote online notarization. She's putting in the address of Sherry, how she knows Sherry, so she knows her through personal knowledge. And she's identifying that this is going to be a remote notarization. And she clicks Let's Go. And just like Sherry, she clicks in her signature field, and this will affix her signature and her notary stamp in the space provided under her signature. And just like that, those four are finished. And that's all that's required for notarizing and signing and reviewing. The nice thing about this is AdPortal dynamically sends the executed affidavit to the user via email and becomes the system of record for the notarized affidavit, and is accessible to the customer via their login and via the admin. So if I come into the orders, I can check and find those affidavits that have been notarized, and I can pull it up, and it will show me it'll allow me to download the signed affidavit PDF right from the order preview screen. And when I download that, I can see all the signature requirements and the signature fields that have been signed in it. So this is the affidavit. The nice thing about our affidavits is the tear sheets are portable, and the links are portable with the affidavit. So viewers anybody that's viewing this can click on and see the actual files. And then for the signatures, I'm going to pull up the actual PDF. You have to physically pull up the PDF and not open it in a browser. And you can see here's the signature properties for the signer and the signature properties for the reviewer. For the notary.
Absolutely. And this is actually the critical difference between a digital signature and a basic e-sign. And actually, digital signatures are based on e-notary principles. So you get that little green digitally signed verification shield, but all of this information, this legal evidence, is embedded into the document itself. So you get the X509 digital certificate that is required for any notarial act online. And that actually verifies the authenticity of that signer to their signature. So this legal evidence, the timestamp, the date it was signed, the IP address, everything is actually embedded into this document itself. So you don't have to rely on a third party to get this. It's all in this document. So if these were ever challenged or anything, needed an audit trail or proof that these signatures were actually who they say they are, you have this one click away in the document itself.
Great. Back to you, Sam.
Absolutely. And that's really the gold standard for compliance. And thank you so much, James. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here as we conclude our webinar today. And we really appreciate your time. Thank you, James and Andrew, as well. As we kind of close here, we've walked you through the traditional way. We've also shown you that there is a better way. But why does this all matter? And what is the ROI? I've been doing traditional notarization way forever. And, we've been through the benefits, but there are real cost savings and solving business problems that we think can be summarized in 4 ways. Number one is guaranteed credibility. iPublish notaries are approved for e-notary and they take care of the notarizing regardless of where your newspaper is located. Manual notarizations are prone to errors and omissions, have printing, paper, and labor costs that limit scalability in a forever changing digital world. And of course, you also get the end to end automated solution all through iPublish. And we'd love to continue the conversation. We believe the iPublish system is transforming the way newspapers handle public notices, which ultimately provides a lower risk, lower cost, and lower stress. And at this time, we thank you so much. We have a few minutes to hear from our guests. Even if it's not a question, just your feedback on if you're facing any of these challenges explained here. If you think a solution like this could benefit your process, anything at all, we'd love to hear from you. So I'm going to turn it over to Anthony, and we'll go ahead and answer a couple of questions before the end of our webinar. Again, really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, guys, we've got a few questions in the chat here. The first one is, what other publishers use this process? Is this brand new? Is it proven? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So sure, Anthony, we have quite a few newspapers using this solution today. It's been extremely successful. The customers have been very, very happy. We are processing approximately right now with one publisher, I think between 250 and 350 affidavits a day. That's fully processing, notarizing, and delivering. And this has saved them enormous amounts of time and money. If you think back to what James was showing us when he showed that video of the process, you saw Shannon and Sherry. Each of them, they only did 3 because you get the point of what we were showing, but they did those 3 in about 3 seconds each. It literally was click, click, click. Imagine 500. Rather than going through and one by one notarizing them back and forth across the table, they could go through those so quickly. And one of the most important things that we haven't stressed yet is the end user gets that affidavit delivered to them within 24 hours of the last insertion date. There's no waiting 3 to 5 days for it to show up by email, even longer if you were looking for it to show up by traditional mail. That is an enormous time saver because very often the end user customer or government agency that's placing that notice in the newspaper is waiting for that affidavit. It's a very important part of their process, and they no longer have to wait that extended time frame. So we are out there. We have numerous customers, and so far the program and the product has been extremely successful.
Great. Another one here, really important. How long did it take you all to get up and running? I think you can talk about that from the iPublish side and then some of these, adopters that you mentioned, Andrew.
So we were introduced to SIGNiX, and during our initial conversations, I mentioned that we got a chance to see what their API looked like. We already had a workflow to create the ads themselves. That was sort of the one first step that I mentioned when I was going through the process, but we didn't have the rest. We had to build a couple of things. We had to build links to the tear sheet systems, and we had to link to SIGNiX to go through that entire process of signatures and notarizations. It took us about 30 days. SIGNiX was very easy to work with. I'd like to say we have very good developers. We put all those pieces of the puzzle together, and we were able to go from just an intake system to a full-blown workflow from start to finish for public notices in about 30 days and went live shortly thereafter.
The last one, can you handle specialized affidavits? So things that, maybe edge cases that a certain state, requires for a certain public ad? Can your system accommodate that? Is it flexible enough?
So very much like the notices themselves, which are all specialized and vary from state to state, we are built on InDesign, so we can create templates for every state, every jurisdiction, and then every category and classification from within those states. So if there's any special category that a state has that requires a special type of affidavit, there's no problem. We can have that specific affidavit built for that specific category.
I think that brings us up to time. We'll obviously get to the rest of these and reach out to everybody. So Sam, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks everybody for your questions, for your time. Again, we'd love to continue the conversation. Please don't hesitate to reach out to either myself or Andrew for any questions. And again, let's go from paper to platform. There's a better way to handle these public notices. And we look forward to continuing the conversation in the future.